Bio 106 students. I hope this finds you all healthy and that you're not completely crazy after all this social distancing. But I wanted to give you a bit of a addendum to the nervous lab. You've probably looked at it and it's a bit overwhelming. It's long and it has a lot of different activities, most of which we are not doing. So, or actually I'm not sure we're doing really any of them. So you're kind of stuck with a few videos on the nervous system. So what I wanted to do is, since classes may be at different points, I don't know whether you at this point have had much on the nervous system. So in order to look over this lab and get the most of it, I want to give you some information. So first of all, I want to talk about a message being sent. So a message being sent from the sensors, for example, this one shows the sensors or the receptors in the skin. The skin has 4 types of receptors. Those are for touch, pain, temperature, and pressure. And so when one of those is triggered, okay, when the message is sent, the message is going to be sent up, and this is the spinal cord. Okay, you can't see it. It's actually the same thing kind of on both sides. You're seeing a little over half here, but it's got kind of a butterfly shaped gray area in the center, and then it's got a lighter gray area on the outside. The lighter gray area is called the white matter. The darker gray area is the gray matter. And when this message is being sent, it's being sent to the spinal cord. And then the spinal cord will send the message to the brain. So let's step back here. So now we have, I don't know, let's say we've felt pressure on our skin. And that message is going to be sent along this nerve. And this nerve is called an afferent nerve or a sensory nerve. I find I use the word sensory more often, but if you have to remember afferent, you're also going to have efferent down in the bottom. So remember A before E. So the message has to be sent to the brain, and then the brain is going to send back a message. So A before E. So we have a sensory nerve message coming in here. It's going to be interpreted in the brain. So the message has got to be sent up the spinal cord to the brain. But what also happens in here is there's something called interneurons, and interneurons are entirely found within this gray matter. So the message is going to come in here and meet with an interneuron. The interneuron is going to be responsible for sending the message to the brain, but it's also going to synapse here with a motor neuron as well. So we'll talk about that in a second and the importance of that. But an afferent or sensory nerve is going to bring the message in. The message is going to be interpreted, and then that message is going to be acted upon. So let's say you're feeling pressure, you want to move your hand. So the message coming in is that there is pressure on your hand. The brain is going to send a message back down through motor neurons that is going to go to the muscle, and it's going to tell your muscle to move your arm or move your hand. And that is a motor neuron or an efferent neuron. So the message is going to be sent to the brain through a sensory or afferent nerve, and it's going to come from the brain as a motor nerve or an efferent nerve. In addition, I want to mention here, what I'm talking about primarily is on page 154 and 155 of your lab book. But if you turn to page 162, there's information about chemoreceptors. And taste and smell are both controlled by chemoreceptors. So in comparison to something like touch or pain, these are messages that are chemical based. So the chemical based message is going to it's going to trigger in the nasal cavity the olfactory receptors, and in the mouth the taste buds. but those are chemical receptors. So they're called chemoreceptors. They're a little bit different. And that message is still going from that chemoreceptor. The chemoreceptor message is still going to go to the brain. The smell is going to be interpreted by the temporal lobe of the brain, while the taste message is going to go to the parietal lobe. And there's a video that accompanies this lab where I attempt to do what the doctor does. You go to the doctor and they check your reflexes, and they do that with a little hammer, and they hit the patellar tendon. So what they're looking for is your leg to kind of jump, right? Everybody's had this done, I'm sure. So there is a sensory neuron that's going to be impacted when, if you hit the right spot on the patellar tendon, that's going to be red in the quadricep, which is the big muscle on the top, and that message is going to go up and into the spinal cord. It's going to go into the gray matter. This doesn't show it well. Your book shows it better, that there is an interneuron within that. And that interneuron is actually, instead of sending the message directly to the brain, which it'll go because you know that once the entire action is over and you've watched your knee, you're interpreting, oh yeah, somebody hit my knee. So you know that the message gets to your brain, but your brain is not involved in actually getting or sending the message out through the motor neuron to move. So you're sensing this change. The message is going to come into the spinal cord. It is going to come into an interneuron. That interneuron is going to send that message directly out to the motor neuron, and that motor neuron is going to cause your leg to jump. Okay, so that's a reflex action. That is not something that your brain is involved in. The brain isn't saying, oh, go ahead and move your leg now. It happens before your brain is even aware. So that's a reflex action, and we have a number of different types of reflex actions.